What is up, everybody? Welcome to the very first edition of Mile High Market Mastery Live, better known as Why Invest Wednesday. But we are going to change this up. We are going to go full on talking about the market, talking about strategies. I did have a YouTube channel called Living in the Denver Suburbs. We've now converted that. All of the people that have come from that and that engage on there are more interested in the market stats, my strategy, building wealth through real estate, and all of the things. So we are going to dive in. This is going to be a Q&A session. Lots of engagement is encouraged. I will be able to see your questions and things like that when they do come up. Please put them in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, or if you're watching on the replay, please put those questions in and I will come back to them and check them out. So if you are tuning in, this is a very different setup. It's going to be live. It'll be, translated. There will be no editing. So if you do have a question, I can throw that up on the screen and you can put it. So just put it in the comments and we'll go from there. But I'm forever grateful for, the live streams that I've done. I've been doing Why Invest Wednesday for about 4.5 years, and now we are going to change that up. So super excited to kind of dive in and get this going. We will be going live every single Wednesday. It'll be at different times until I find those engaging times, but please put a comment below and we'll get rolling. If you are watching this on the replay, you have gotten through the mumbo jumbo. We are ready to roll. So nearly 40% of Denver homes on the market this summer had to cut their price. That's the highest in the country. Inventory is up almost 30% year over year, and homes are taking an average of 40 to 50 to 60 days to sell, depending on what market you're in. We are going to talk about all of this and more as we go. I go live every single Wednesday, Mile High Market Mastery. I'm Jeremy Kane with eXp Realty. If you are considering buying or selling, the only time to buy or sell is when you are ready. And the only time I know that you are considering it is if you reach out. Shoot me a text, a DM on Instagram, comment below, and I will get in touch with you. But we will look at your situation. I promise not to pressure you or push you in one way or the other. Honestly, it's more important for me that we have you as the main character in your journey of home ownership or building wealth through real estate, as I have done. But that's the key factor. There's no perfect time to buy or sell unless it makes sense for you, your family, and everything in between. So we are going to dive into that. So I've been in this business for 12 years. I bought my first house when I was 19. I was lucky enough to hold on to that. I've turned that into 6 rentals, but it's not about me. That's my journey. Now I just like to help others build on their journeys as well. So let's kind of dive into this. All right. Inventory is up almost to 4.1 months on market. This is absolutely insane when you think about the quick sales. When we were going on the market and we had 7 days, average days on market. And now in some cases, some neighborhoods were up to 60 days on market in the Denver metro area. So it feels like it's so different, right? If we're talking condos and townhomes, we're talking 5.6 months of inventory. We're talking 30% year over year. We're talking the coldest market in Capitol Hill and Lodo, in those attached dwellings. Why? Well, there's a lot of different reasons why that's happening, whether that's HOAs, boosted going up, skyrocketing because HOA poor management, or maybe the insurance, right? Insurance costs are absolutely insane. In Colorado, we're kind of, in the crosshairs of major hailstorms that cost a lot of money when roofs, get damaged. And then we also have the wildfires up in the hills. And so we are in those crosshairs, and that's why those condos, townhomes, and those HOAs skyrocket, because those insurance policies on the multiple unit townhomes, I mean, it's crazy when some of, say there's 15, 20, sometimes 30 buildings in these HOAs and a hailstorm hits it. Well, that's 30 new roofs, and those premiums and those deductibles are absolutely massive. And insurance companies, as you guys probably know, are falling behind. So here's the deal. What I'm saying all of this for you to say is we are no longer in 2021. The market has shifted, times have changed. However, when people ask me, what's going on with the market? How are we doing? It really depends. But I also want you to know that it's not all that different than it was in the first 5 years of my career. Homes are taking a little longer to sell. People come through and listing agents are hanging on by a thread. Sellers are calling listing agents the minute that those people exit through the Ring doorbell. And it's just a little bit different, right? And I have this conversation constantly, and we'll talk about it as we move into kind of this piece with the price reductions and all of that. As we move into this piece, a lot of sellers reach out. In fact, I had one today reach out and say, hey, well, we can start at this price because we can always come down. This is probably the worst strategy you could take on right now, especially in this market, because every single showing is important. And if somebody comes through your home and it's, not comparable to the active inventory, which we'll talk about in a second, we're going to have problems. We're not going to sell. We're going to sit on the market. We're going to forego those average days on the market, and it's going to be a big deal, right? This isn't a market crash. It's a reset. Remember, equity and the numbers that we talk about travel so much quicker these days, right? Before, I've talked to my friends that are lenders, and they say we used to not answer a question about what the interest rates were for 4 to 6 weeks, right? They would fluctuate. They would stay stable. But now we are absolutely answering this question by the minute. And so as we kind of break this down, we have to understand that there's a lot going on, right? This is a reset. Information is traveling faster than ever. You can type information, you can ask ChatGPT, you can ask Google, and it's now an answer-based platform for the most part. And the data comes, whoever puts it on the internet, is king, I guess, right? Whether that data is, backed with anything or not. I mean, look at the government. When the jobs numbers come out and then they, change them, and then they change them again. And then a year later, you're like, actually, it was, 10% more than that and whatever, right? So you can't trust everything you read. So it's important that we have these boots on the ground discussions. The 38.3 listings reduced their price, 26.6% nationally. So in these bigger markets, these markets that exploded during COVID, the prices went way up. We had the bidding wars. We had bidding wars pretty much across the country because those interest rates are nationwide. However, some markets went way up, in value, some a little bit less, right? The ones that went way up are having that correction. They're feeling it a little bit differently because it's a completely different market, right? Who's to say that a buyer can't walk through a house twice, right, and think about it overnight and actually have the opportunity? Now, I will say there are still houses that are going off the market quicker, and that's all of that. But now we're talking about, okay, we have the option, right? Should we sell now? Should we wait till the spring? When's the perfect time? And that's what we're here to talk about today. Give you all the data, give you the statistics so that you can understand exactly what is going on. Okay. It's not all doom and gloom, right? The median Denver single family homes price is $630,000, down just 1.6 month over month, and 1.2 year over year, right? So last August or last July, we were still humming along. But in actuality, Colorado's seasonal market, we come in the spring, we start in the spring, things kind of go up quicker, like February, March, and then they kind of stable off, and then they kind of dip as the summer goes, and then they kind of stable off and maybe, kind of, I wouldn't say increase, but it's definitely not a neutral, right? It kind of picks up after the kids are back in school, everybody's back from their camping trips, during football season. Maybe Sundays are rough with the Broncos around here, go Broncos. But other than that, we start to see that. So we're seeing a very seasonal trend, right? But all of a sudden, 40 days on market, when all actuality it was, one weekend on market, whether they've listed on Thursday or not back in the pandemic, this is what people are used to. A lot of the sellers that are trying to sell that bought homes during those pandemic years are expecting this. They don't know any different. And if your agent is not explaining the market, what's going on, then we need to have a conversation with your agent, not we, but you, and just ask them, what are you seeing out there? What's going on? As we continue to stack inventory and active inventory, let me see what it's at right now over here on my other screen. Up to the minute active inventory, we have 1356 new listings in the last 7 days, right? There was, not that going on the market back in the glory days in, 2 weeks. So let's see here. Active, there's 23,146 properties currently listed active in the Denver MLS, right? That's absolutely insane. Some of it's double listings, some of it's land, whatever it is, right? That's a decent amount of inventory there. And we have to understand exactly what that looks like from a buyer's perspective when we're thinking about selling. Okay. What does our house have to look like? It either has to be the very, very, very best price and stand out and be a great deal, or it has to be the very, very, very best house, move-in ready, turnkey. Why is this? Because buyers don't have any money to put into the home if they have a $5,000 mortgage because the interest rates are higher. This is something that we have to look at, and it's pushing affordability as we roll. So the buyer does have the advantage, right? Now is possibly the best time in 14 years to be a buyer. This is something that's absolutely resonated with me from an article I read. That's Sunny Banka who said that, right? If you've been waiting for the right time and the right moment as a buyer, and you've always had your focus on, okay, the interest rates, that's not the focus. The focus is less competition, less demand. So you're not having those bidding wars. If you lose out on one because you didn't want to overspend on it, you can pivot and there's 4 more on the same street maybe. And it's not something like 08, 09 where people are upside down and so on. There will be some of that comes through. However, in our market, a strong rental market, as a seller, if you're in that position, let's have a legitimate conversation and talk about that. So let's do a little bit of screen sharing just to kind of bring home what I'm saying here and take my face off of the current screen. So as we pull this up here, as you can see, this is the MLS. Let's look at this, right? This over here is the 3-year mark back to January of 2022. And you see, as we go, we have active listings increasing, right? That's something that we need to take into account. Well, here's the pending listings in that same time frame. The fact that we have active listings going up and pending listings going down and then kind of rebounding a little bit because of such a great jump in active listings. I mean, these should be fairly, similar curves, if you will, if we're in a market that's humming along. Days in MLS, right? Back in 2022, we were at 5. Okay. To this day, we're at 25. And this is an average of all types of properties, all MLS. So as you can see, the steady climb. You can follow the interest rate curve here and notice there's no downs. There's just flat, right? It's not like, oh, the interest rates drop below 7, boom, down. No, it's just flat. So it's taking the market a little bit of time to rebound. Okay. Shows per listing per month. Back when we were rolling, it was 16.9, and I'd be willing to bet that that's a 17 showing weekend when you had a house that was priced adequately well and we were ready to go. It just is a month based on our thing. But in Colorado, we take the homes, we put them under contract, and we don't show them anymore pretty much. So as we come down here, you see it goes down to, 6.9 showings per month. And it's just ticking down as we go. And finally, in July, 5.4 showings per month. That's an incredible stat when you're really considering that homes were going off the market in a weekend and they were having almost 17 showings on average. And now we're seeing them at 5.4 showings per whole month, right? And yes, opening weekend would have been 17, 18, 30. Maybe it was priced wrong. So it was, 2 weekends it took to get it under contract, heaven forbid. But if you're talking 17 showings per listing per weekend, and now that they're sitting on the market for, a month or two in some cases, and we're getting 5, that's an incredible amount of difference and change there. So then we look over here to shows per pending. This is median shows per pending, and we have 10, right? Up here, yeah, of course, it was 17.9. Look at that, 17.0. And then it kind of went way down as the showings kind of fell off, but so did the demand, right? So we're saying, okay, yeah, it's only taken 12 to get under contract. This is when we're still cooking, right? It's only taken 10 to get under contract. And then we kind of leveled out on that 10 to get under contract here. But when we go to averages, 14.7, and then you can see it's fairly stable as we move this way. So those are all things that really matter. These are showing demand. These are stats directly from our MLS that are showing you those things. So as we kind of revert back to that, we're going to switch this, add stage, boom, here we go. Whoops, there we go. I'm back. Again, if any of this is resonating with you and you have specific questions, book a call with that QR code right there. And I would love to help you in your mission to find a home, to conquer home ownership. It may not be the best time. A lot of my colleagues are like, oh, home ownership's, always better than renting. It is always better, but is it always cheaper? No. You can rent a place for a lot cheaper right now in our market than buying a place with, less down payment, so to speak, even though some of us are taking, first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit becomes pretty aggressive, but they are putting, standards into play for that. But as an agent and seeing what is happening, if you are thinking about selling, it is of utmost importance. Do you have to sell? Do you need to sell? Do you want to sell? Okay, great. Then we need to look at where you're going. What kind of advantage are you going to get in that market when you're moving forward? Once we have all of that and we know your exact situation, then the answer is clear. It's obvious. I have people that want to sell right now and they're, kind of hanging out. We're looking at options as far as maybe renting it out. What's that look like? We're making an educated decision on what to do. Or some people that have to sell, right? We can't change that. If you have to sell because you've fallen on hard times financially or whatever, please do that. Because if we really step back and we look at this and we understand that, okay, maybe I've owned my home for 5 years. Some of those 5 years were by far the, golden era of home appreciation in the Denver metro and northern Colorado markets. Okay. We don't want to just be like, okay, well, I lost my job. I can't pay my bills anymore. I'm getting behind, and not raise our hand right away, because we will lose some of that golden equity gain. Have we given some of it back? Certainly. It's monopoly money, right? Yes, it's great to log on to Zillow and see how much your house is worth, and, call me and see how much your house is worth. By the way, if you are concerned about how much your home's worth and you want a real estimate that's not inflated like some of the others, please reach out. I will get that value for you. We can go through it. I can send it to you. We don't have to even have a conversation. I'm not going to push you to sell if it doesn't make sense. But if it does make sense, let's look at it. Because here's the deal. If you're buying and selling in the same market like most people do, then you have the opportunity to absolutely take advantage as a buyer. Will you have to give a little bit back, quote unquote, of the monopoly money that you earned during the pandemic? Yes. How about if we bought a house in 22, 23, as things kind of started hitting the tipping point, we went down, right? 24. No matter what market, I've always suggested that you hold the home, or you should be prepared to hold the home for 2 years. Sometimes, in the fix and flip world, and sometimes during the glory COVID years of real estate, we were able to rebound even if we made that mistake. If we bought a house or had a major life event that changed, and we were able to get out of that and maybe even make some money in the crazy years. But now we want to make sure that we're looking at this and we're making the right decision. So along with selling a home comes fees, marketing fees, right? My marketing budget is way up this year because I can actually market properties. I have time to get creative and market properties in different ways. And so that's exactly what we're doing. If we are on the market, if we make that decision, it's what's right for you, the family, and everything. And it's time, we're going to go to the market. And I'm going to go full force. I'm going to understand, and we're going to set expectations about the average days on market and what that looks like. But we have to understand that making these decisions and these choices always need to start and end with where we're going from here. And so that's kind of the key. So let's move on a little bit and talk about pricing to offer, not just appraisals. And this is an adjustment as a professional that I had to make, where I was like, okay, I could get an appraisal for that. Well, before I had to do this because I would price a property and I'd say, okay, even though these offers are coming in $25,000, $50,000 over asking, if they don't have appraisal waivers or appraisal gaps, which is when the buyer says, hey, I want your house so bad that I'll pay X amount over appraised value. We don't have that insurance as a seller anymore in most cases. Then we need to make sure that the home would appraise. Right. And so we have this little time frame, probably middle of 23 through middle of 24 into 24, where we kind of still were having that appraisal gap hangover. And now we don't necessarily have to worry about the appraisal, especially in a market that's flattening or even declining, because the comps are all there. I have comparables that can make it happen. But now I'm more worried about the active inventory. What home is is somebody that's going to come in and see this home that I'm listing? What other things are they looking at? Where do we stand as it relates to the competition? What do we have that one doesn't? Okay, we have a 2-car garage. This one doesn't have a garage. Okay, we don't have stairs. This one has stairs. Okay, we have new furnace, new roof, new electrical. This one does not. Those are things that we can utilize and will provide a little bit of reprieve when we do go under contract for the inspection, but not necessarily something that the buyers are going to look for like upfront, right? They're not going to be like, oh, this electrical panel is completely updated, I can tell, and this one's completely old or illegal, outdated. It's just not what most agents do at showings. I might be a little bit different. But if you want a different agent, definitely book a call with me, because we need to talk. We need to hear where you're at and make a plan. If it's 5 years from now, we'll still be friends, and we'll get it done. And I won't push you into that. So book a call down here and we'll talk about that in your scenario. So now we are pricing based on the competition, based on getting an offer. How quickly do you need to move, Mr. Seller? Because I've seen it time and time again, right? I recently had a home that's been on the market for 4.5 months. Amazing backyard. If you've seen the Hawaiian shirt video, it's that one. And we've almost got an offer weekend one. Almost got 2 offers actually, right? Full price. We were way up, right? When we talked, I said, hey, this is what it is. They're like, well, everybody at my work is saying this and, whatever. And so we agreed on a price. I said, I think we're still worth this, right? So that original price suggestion is there. We went above that. Okay. We came down. We got another offer. We got an offer that was contingent on a property that wasn't on the market. I said, that's a huge risk, saying that we need to sell this house in order for you to buy the house we're under contract on, in another state. So I want some aggressive terms in there so that we have some outs as the seller. Okay. So we put those in, right? That person said no. Then we do get an offer, right? It's a lowball offer. We negotiate up. Then buyer says, hey, I don't know if I want the title company to cash the earnest money check. Essentially, they were getting cold feet. Didn't, the loan terms knocked them off their feet, which was shocking to me because they were in the industry. Okay. And then they terminated. So here we are, back and forth in a street fight to get this amazing home that my clients have absolutely loved for years and years, offloaded so they can move on with their retirement and all those things. Okay. Come this week, we get an offer, right? Again, we've had to lower the price. We've had to get aggressive. We're now $20,000 below that price that I could get an appraisal at before, and over 50,000 less than we agreed upon to list it. Okay, whose fault is that? It's mine. I obviously needed to make it more clear. However, every single time I list a property, especially now when I'm having these conversations, clients are like, well, we can start here and come down. We can't, go down much further from that number. Well, the truth is, it doesn't matter what we price the property at. The market is going to tell us. Okay, we could price the property for $1 and it would probably get bidded up into a pretty close amount of the market value if you really want to look at both sides. Okay, and so the list price doesn't necessarily matter based on what you're going to go under contract on. So having these and looking at the competition is the new norm when I'm talking to my clients about selling, because we need the strategy to match the need. If you need to get out of Dodge, you need to get under contract and sell in 30 days, then we're going to have to undercut the market a little bit. We might have to give a little bit of money back based on that monopoly money equity, and we can do that. So this is something that's absolutely key, right? And then it's a beauty contest, right? I've had a home where we were like, okay, this is kind of what I think this year, but it had the amenities, it had barns, it had garages, it had, the beautiful country wraparound porch, it had those things. I said, we could go here, right? Boom, it went under contract because of the work that the clients put in. It was turnkey, it was move-in ready. We did get in kind of a negotiation on the inspection, even still, as the market shifted, whereas before we wouldn't have had that. So as we're kind of unwrapping this and unfolding all of this, we have to understand that there's two homes that are selling. The perfect home, turnkey, move-in ready in a desirable area, nothing that needs to be done to it based on the buyer's opinion, not yours. Okay. And then the home that is priced correctly, possibly a little bit below market value. If we're lucky on opening weekend, if there's a lot of people out looking, maybe we can get it, priced, maybe we could get it bid up a little bit. 5, 10, 15,000 over asking is not uncommon for the ones that are priced, again, a little bit below market, bringing them back up to market value. So it's all about the timeline. Remember, average days on, if you go with an average strategy, your average days on market is almost 2 months. That's a lot when we're, expected to move our dogs and their kids and everything and have the house clean. Heaven forbid you have a clean house when you have kids. It needs to be spotless and show ready when you have kids. I get it. It's not as easy as you might expect. So these average days on market are huge. So if you're a buyer watching this and you're salivating by now, you're like, oh man, this is the time to get a deal. Please book a call with me. We can have that conversation. There is, the market is, stabilizing. We haven't seen, averages of homes, considering we've had almost 40% of homes have price decreases. That doesn't mean that homes are, depreciating. It just means that agents are a little bit slower or sellers are a little bit slower to name that sales price that actually matters, right? So what is the average prices? What are those things? It's just a different pricing strategy. So if you're a buyer and you are thinking now might be your opportunity, let's have a conversation. So the question is, would you sell your home if you knew it might take 60 plus days and maybe some price cuts? Is that something you want to deal with? If your answer is yes, book a call. We'll have a conversation. We'll put a strategy together that works with your timeline. Okay. The next question, how many of you think prices will be higher a year from now? everybody should raise their hand. Prices will likely stabilize and go up. Even last year, which, was a very tough market, this year's proving to be, with kind of low, sides or transaction, sides. Since 1995, we sold less homes last year in any year since 1995, and this year is trending to be below last year. So that's something really to consider. But does that mean prices will go down? Depends on the seller, depends on the agent racing to the bottom, suggesting that we lower the price, when we don't have the data to back it up, right? If you bought in 20 and 21, do you know what your equity position is today? This is something that, yes, if we're looking at this, we might be like, oh, that doesn't sound very good. But if you held a home between 2020 and 2023, your gain was significant, right? So you might not be grouped in this same situation. You likely refinanced and the interest rate's a little bit lower. But if you're kind of bursting at the seams at your house, you no longer need 2 home offices because you went back to work, those kind of things. Let's have a conversation and see. I'm more than happy to help. This is not doom and gloom. It's a market where you can take advantage on one side or the other as a buyer or seller, as every market will be, even balanced markets, right? You're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit here. I'm going to get a little bit here. We're good to go. If it's a seller's heavy market, you're going to do really well on the sale side, and you're going to probably have to give a little back on the buy side. If it's a buyer's market, you're probably going to give a little bit back on the seller side. You're going to have to, you're going to get a little bit more on the buyer side. So there is a time and place for people to put their homes on the market right here, right now, as long as you understand the data. So in conclusion, the market is cooling, but it is not crashing. Okay. Depending on what your definition of crash is. If you think it's crashing, call it a crash. Doesn't matter. The home's the home, the stats are the stats, and we can put a strategy together for you to win. Sellers, competitive pricing and putting your home in the best light humanly possible when you go to do that. That's what this word is on the street in summer of 2025. And buyers, best leverage is now, when it's better leverage than you've had in over a decade. When those interest rates come down, there likely will be more competition, and we can have those conversations then. Okay. However, your situation is completely unique. If you're still watching this, I've probably said something you like or has got your attention. Please book a call, because all of this is generalities. Okay. We don't want to be 100%, basing our decisions off an entire market. In fact, 2 markets, Denver and Northern Colorado, both markets I serve, because I'm familiar. We don't want to be basing your entire strategy off a, bird's eye view of the real estate market in these areas. So if that's you, let's narrow it down. Let's get micro focused on your goals and take you to the next level. Book a call with me. Thank you so much for joining me on the first edition of Mile High Market Mastery, formerly known as Why Invest Wednesday. We're going to keep this train going, and I want to be here for you to help you build wealth through real estate, whether that's ready to buy a house today or an 8-unit apartment complex, or you're looking at building a future. You want to make sure that you can buy a home at some point in your time. We're going to make that happen. We'll see you next time on Mile High Market Mastery. I'm Jeremy Kane. Bye-bye.